A black schoolgirl was falsely accused and insulted for a baseless accusation. In broad daylight, they thought she would be afraid, would silently endure, but the call from the grocery store wasn't for a lawyer or her father. It was for a Navy SEAL captain, a mother, an uncompromising warrior. When the mother returns, the hunters will understand what it's like to be hunted. We'll face justice. Please comment and subscribe to follow stories of justice and strength, of those who never bow before injustice. Kayla was on her way home from basketball practice. She stopped by a small grocery store tucked away in a dark alley to buy an energy drink. Something she always needed after hours of strenuous exercise. The store was empty, with only an old woman picking vegetables in the corner and a middle-aged man with a grumpy expression behind the counter. Kayla chose a drink and then casually grabbed a chocolate bar to eat on the way. As she stood at the checkout counter, she noticed the old woman still staring at her, her scrutinizing gaze making her feel a little uncomfortable. Kayla tried to ignore it, focusing on finding money in her bag. "That'll be $25,000, the middle-aged man said, his tone cold. Kayla handed over the money, took the drink and chocolate bar, and quickly walked out of the store. She had just opened the chocolate bar when she heard someone call out sharply from behind. "Hey you, stop." Kayla turned around, seeing the middle-aged man and the old woman running towards her, their faces angry. "Did you take something without paying?" the man asked, his tone accusatory. Kayla was surprised. "Number. I paid for everything," she said, holding up the drink and chocolate bar. "We have a witness who says you stole a chocolate bar," the man said, pointing at the old woman. "Please let us check your bag." Kayla felt offended. "I didn't steal anything," she said, "and I have no obligation to let you check my bag. If you have nothing to hide, you'll let us check," the man said, moving closer. Kayla hesitated. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong, but she also knew she had no power here. She reluctantly opened her bag. The man rummaged through Kayla's bag, but found nothing. "Where did you hide it?" the man asked, his voice full of suspicion. "I didn't steal anything," Kayla said, her voice full of anger. "You're harassing me. We have the right to hold you for investigation," the man said. Kayla felt helpless. She knew she couldn't do anything to stop them. At that moment, a police patrol car drove by. The two officers noticed the tense situation and stopped. "What's going on?" one officer asked. The man quickly recounted the incident, the old woman nodding in agreement. Kayla stood there, feeling helpless and humiliated. "I told you," the old woman said, her voice triumphant, her wrinkled face full of malice. "These kids are all thieves. You can tell by looking at them." "That's right, you can tell they're not decent people just by looking," the man repeated, his eyes filled with undisguised contempt. "They've definitely hidden it somewhere on them. Search them thoroughly, officers." Kayla felt tears welling up, her throat tightening. She felt humiliated and helpless, as if she were standing naked in the middle of a crowd of scornful eyes. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong, but she couldn't prove it. The officers continued to rummage through Kayla's bag, flipping through every compartment, checking every nook and cranny. Meanwhile, the people in the store didn't stop whispering, their eyes like daggers piercing Kayla's skin. "Search them more thoroughly. They might have hidden it in their jacket," the old woman said, her eyes as sharp as a hawk. "Or in their pants. These kids are full of tricks," the man said, smirking. Kayla felt her whole body trembling, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to scream, to run away, but her limbs were paralyzed. She felt like a small animal cornered, with no way out. "I didn't steal anything," she said, her voice choked with tears. "I paid for everything." "Come on, kid," the officer said, his voice cold. "We don't have time for lies." They continued to search, frisking Kayla thoroughly, not missing a single detail. Kayla felt like she was being stripped bare, exposed to the contemptuous eyes of everyone. She felt like she was no longer a human being, but just an object they could inspect and judge at will. At that moment, a sleek black car screeched to a halt in front of the store. The door swung open, and Martina Carter stepped out, her expression resolute and her eyes icy. She strode quickly towards Kayla, wrapping her arms around her trembling daughter. "Kayla, are you all right?" Her voice was filled with concern. but also a hint of anger. "I'm okay, Mom." Kayla choked back tears. "But they treated me so badly." Martina scanned the crowd, her gaze sweeping over the murmuring onlookers. She stopped at the two police officers, the middle-aged man, and the old woman. "What happened here?" Her voice was cold, but loud enough for everyone to hear. The middle-aged man stepped forward, a smug look on his face. "Your daughter stole something from my store," he said, his tone accusatory. "We called the police, but they didn't find anything." "Stole?" Martina raised an eyebrow, her voice full of skepticism. "My daughter would never do that." "Like mother, like daughter," the old woman said, her voice shrill, her face wrinkled. "Birds of a feather, thieves all of them." "That's right, you can tell they're not decent people just by looking," the man repeated, his eyes filled with undisguised contempt. "They've definitely hidden it somewhere on them. Search them thoroughly, officers. You should teach your daughter some manners," the officer said, his voice cold. "Don't let her bring shame to your family." Martina looked at them, her eyes burning with fury. "You're insulting my daughter," she said, her voice filled with anger. "And you're insulting me." "Oh, really?" the officer smirked. Their words were like daggers piercing Martina's heart. She looked at her daughter, seeing Kayla trembling, tears streaming down her face. She knew she had to do something, not only to protect her daughter, but also to protect herself, to defend the dignity of a mother. "You are insulting me," Martina said, her voice full of anger. "And you will pay for it." "Pay?" the man scoffed. "What are you going to do? Hit us?" "I don't need to hit anyone," Martina said, her voice cold. "I just need to let you know that you made a mistake by insulting me and my daughter." Martina pulled out her phone and dialed a number. "I want to report an incident of racial discrimination and abuse of power," she said into the phone. "I'm at the grocery store on Elm Street, and I want to speak to your supervisor. And by the way, I want to make one thing clear. I am Captain Martina Carter, Navy SEAL, and I will not let this go." Martina's words were like a thunderbolt, stunning everyone in the store. They couldn't believe what they had just heard. The woman they had just insulted and scorned was a Navy SEAL, one of the most elite forces in the U.S. military. Navy SEAL? The middle-aged man stammered, his face pale. "No way. How can that be? We didn't know," one of the officers said, his voice trembling. "If we had known, we wouldn't have." "Wouldn't have done what?" Martina asked, her voice cold. "Wouldn't have insulted my daughter? Wouldn't have racially discriminated against us?" We're sorry," the old woman said, her voice trembling, her eyes filled with fear. "We're really sorry. We didn't know." "Your apologies mean nothing," Martina said, her voice resolute. "You have caused harm to my daughter, and you will pay for it." Those who had insulted Kayla and Martina now faced belated remorse. They realized that their words and actions had caused deep pain to others. They also realized that racial discrimination and abuse of power are unacceptable behaviors in a civilized society. We're truly sorry," the middle-aged man said, his voice choked with tears. "We were wrong. We were too reckless." Me too," the old woman said, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what I was thinking." The two officers bowed their heads, not daring to look Martina in the eye. They knew they had made a serious mistake, and they would pay for it. "Apologies?" Martina scoffed. "Your apologies mean nothing. You insulted my daughter. You racially discriminated against us. And you will pay for it." We're truly sorry," the middle-aged man stammered, his face pale. "We were wrong. We were too reckless. We didn't know you were." "Knowing or not knowing doesn't matter," Martina interrupted, her voice cold. "What matters is that you acted this way, and you must be held accountable." Martina turned to the two police officers. "The same goes for you. You abused your power. You failed to fulfill your responsibilities. You will face the consequences." We understand," one of the officers said, his voice trembling. "We were wrong. We will accept any punishment." Immediately, an internal affairs team appeared. They began questioning everyone present in the store, collecting evidence and taking statements. "We witnessed everything," a woman in the crowd said, her voice full of anger. "They insulted the girl and her mother. They said terrible racist things." "That's right," another man said. "They treated the girl like a criminal just because of her skin color." Under pressure from the public and authorities, the grocery store was forced to close. The middle-aged man and the old woman were charged with defamation, racial discrimination, and disturbing public order. "We will appeal," the middle-aged man's lawyer said, his voice defiant. "We believe our client is innocent." "Innocent?" Martina scoffed. "We have ample evidence to prove their guilt. They will not escape justice." The two police officers were immediately suspended from duty. They were terminated and faced criminal charges for abuse of power and racial discrimination. "We were wrong," one of the officers said, his voice choked with emotion. "We failed to fulfill our responsibilities. We apologize." "Your apologies mean nothing," Martina said, her voice cold. "You caused harm to my daughter. And you will live with that." Those who had insulted Kayla and Martina now faced belated remorse. They realized that their words and actions had caused deep pain to others. They also realized that racial discrimination and abuse of power are unacceptable behaviors in a civilized society. I'm truly sorry," the old woman said, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know why I said such things. I apologize to the girl. I apologize to you. I hope you've learned your lesson," Martina said, her voice stern. "No one has the right to judge others based on their skin color." Kayla stood beside her mother, silent, but her eyes spoke volumes. She felt relieved that justice had been served, but also saddened that these people had to face such severe consequences. "Mom," Kayla said, her voice soft, "let's go home." Martina nodded, embracing her daughter. "Yes, let's go home." This story is a lesson about the power of truth when Kayla is exonerated, while also exposing the consequences of racial discrimination. The courage of the mother, Martina, demonstrated through her standing up to protect her daughter, is a great source of inspiration. The solidarity of the community also contributes to reclaiming justice. The belated remorse of the wrongdoers serves as a reminder of the responsibility in words and actions. This story is not just about Kayla and Martina, but about all of us. About the injustices that still exist. Will you just stand by or dare to speak out when you witness injustice? Share this story to spread the message of justice and courage. Sometimes, it only takes one person to dare to say, "Enough," to change the injustice in an entire society.